Welcome. I'm Christina Skerka, founder and CEO of Power for All, which is a global campaign of hundreds of partners around the world, all organized to really focus on ending energy poverty faster. I will also be your host for today's event and working together with an amazing group of panelists to celebrate the first integrated energy pilot in Uganda. Before we begin, we just, on behalf of all panelists, wanted to extend our sincere empathy for the state of the pandemic and for those who are currently suffering. We know that several people in Uganda have been deeply affected, and we just wanted to pause for a moment and express our heartfelt condolences for any losses in the country and hopes for healing and recovery for all. But to provide some hope at a difficult moment during this pandemic, we're celebrating today an historic occasion, not just for Uganda, but for the entire global community. So today we are joined together to commission the first integrated energy pilot in Uganda. And this is a manifestation of a joint commitment between centralized utilities, in this case UMEME, and decentralized renewable energy providers, including Equatorial Power, Intergrow, and East African Power, with the support of the Ugandan government. And before we proceed further, I did want to extend a special welcome to some of our very special guests today, including Robert Kasande, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Engineer Cecilia Mena, who we'll hear from later, who is the Acting Director for Energy Resources at the Ministry. Of course, Engineer Zira Tibwa from ERA, and of course also Joan Mutwiba from the Rural Electrification Agency. In addition, our supporters from the Rockefeller Foundation, including Joseph Iganga, Ashvin Dayal, Claire Boland-Ross, and then I also understand that Raihan Alani is with us today from the World Bank. So thank you all so much for joining and being part of this journey as we've gone along. Just briefly to set up our discussion, we want to focus on the fact that this pilot, which we're calling TWACE, will not only create electricity connections for villages that have lived without modern energy service for far too long, but will also help improve the quality of life and drive economic development by creating a holistic solution that will help an entire community to deepen the benefits of that access to energy, including productive use to drive a more efficient and efficacious energy system. So in compliance with the national law, this entire event is being held remotely, and we do look forward to a time when we can join together in person to celebrate further. Just one note on the Q&A, please use the Q&A, not the chat box, for any questions that you have. Those will be moderated by the Power for All team, and we'll reserve about 10 minutes towards the end of this 90-minute presentation to address some of those questions. So with that, if I could turn it over to the team to kick us off with a look at our video about TWACE. Team, if it's possible to raise the video, please.
In Uganda, a country of 40 million people, only 41% of its population has access to electricity. The government of Uganda aims to achieve universal energy access by 2030. But currently, only a fourth of the population is connected to the power grid. This means that Uganda will likely have to connect over 10 million customers to achieve universal access. If grid extension is the sole method of service provision, the required investment would likely be in the range of $7 billion, which is about 20% of the nation's GDP. There is a cheaper and faster way. A coalition of energy sector leaders are creating the utility of the future by integrating the public and private sectors and centralized and decentralized solutions to provide affordable, reliable, and clean power for all.
Utilities 2.0 is actually a global initiative that's focused on bringing centralized and decentralized energy together to catalyze the research, engineering, regulation, and political will to achieve a faster, more affordable approach to ending energy poverty.
The objectives of the project is to test grid integration, and as such, the customer that we've connected is able to vent off the Umeme system like any other customers. He's been provided with the same meters the Umeme customer has.
Through the Twake pilot project, the partners aim to achieve faster connections, drive demand stimulation, so that more customers productively use their electricity and improve grid reliability and stability, thereby reducing grid losses.
Our goal is to link energy access and agro-processing, promote economic growth in rural communities.
Ekosa amasanyalazi speed mba ngirakosa obudde butono obenga ofuna obuwunga bwo ebyali byetolodde Kiwumu bagina kubanga baleeta mu kifo kino kubanga bafuna emmere nnungi bawone engendo empanvu zibadde batambula mu bifo ebyewa.
This project has helped business owners earn more from their investments. Juliet Navatanzi, one of the many project beneficiaries, is now earning more from her house rentals.
Jenataddemu amasanyalazi bagirwanira omutali era omupangisa yagenze nti saagala eyo etaliimu era kimpaliriza okukomawo nagino egitaafuna gifune.
It has been a journey from customers having a lot of questions and doubts about the power to customers now embracing and more connections coming up and having so many other people wanting to get the opportunity to be connected.
One of the project partners, Enagro, is providing appliance financing for fridges, saloon and restaurant equipment to enable business make more money from their electricity connections.
Fridge enyambe mu business yange olw'okuba bakasitoma bajja ne mbawo ebinyogoga ne bafuna kale kye baagala.
Appliances and tools that use electricity that can help people earn money can help the energy company earn an income as well. So when the customer is earning more money, the energy company is earning more money, and Enagro is making a business gain as well.
The initiative, once scaled, can make a serious contribution to achieving universal energy access.
It will allow us to test integration and understand better how interconnectivity to the grid will happen once the grid reaches where mini-grid projects are being set up. It will also allow us to replicate this project in other project sites.
Data gathering, which will take place over the next 12 months, will hopefully educate and better direct the future of this model so that we may replicate it in scale across many countries in Africa and beyond.
The learnings from this project will inform significantly policy, especially for Uganda, where mini-grids and integration of mini-grids or offline systems to the grid is still in its infancy stages.
It's time to realize that neither centralized nor decentralized energy is purpose-built to solve energy poverty alone. It's only through partnership that we'll be able to solve this global problem. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. If we could bring the slides back up, please, just for a quick review of our agenda for today, and then we'll get directly into the content. Great, thank you so much. So we've just gone through our first two items here. We'll engage in some sort of scene setting here briefly, and then quickly we'll move to hearing from our partners, our key implementing partners on the ground, to really understand what the journey has been in this partnership endeavor. And following that, we'll be hearing from the Government of Uganda, the Rockefeller Foundation, and then of course, the MD of Umeme Limited. We'll have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, assuming we don't go terribly over time in our remarks, and then we'll close up. And just a final note, again, please use the Q&A if you have questions. Those will be moderated, and if we run out of time today, we will certainly follow up and answer all of those questions over email. So if we could advance for 2 slides, please, and get to our scene setting remarks. Thank you so much. To just kind of get our minds in the place of addressing why we're focused on this issue and this problem. At this point, I think everyone globally is quite aware that SDG 7, or the provision of modern energy services for all, is well behind where it needs to be in ending energy poverty. And when we look at that alongside other trends, there's some opportunities for a new way of thinking and a new way of approaching the problem. So we see that the central grid really has been largely the choice for development dollars. And so global investment has increased in the power sector 2.5 times over the last 15 years, but yet we still have almost 1 billion people that do not have access to energy. And these numbers are quite challenging because the target to get there are very huge numbers indeed, including achieving around 100 million new connections per year. So next slide, please. So when we came together to develop this concept of Utilities 2.0, what emerged was this first of a kind demonstration project that tests the benefits of actually working together instead of being seen as opposite sides of the wire for a centralized and decentralized energy company. So altogether, this approach that starts with integrated planning and innovative finance, the idea is to reduce connection costs, accelerate pace, and improve affordability of access to energy. But beyond that, there's more opportunities which have to do with really bringing the best of the decentralized sector, including smart integrated technologies to improve the reliability of connections. And finally, through this effort, really identify the most meaningful data and finance innovations that can drive demand stimulation and not just improve energy opportunity and profits for companies, but also ensure that people are making the most out of their energy connections. Next slide, please. So we came together first as a group in 2018 with approximately 30 leaders in the energy sector from all over the world. We joined together, all united around this concept of how do we apply the concept of the utility of the future to a developing world context. And in this endeavor, we quickly realized that partnership was critical to take advantage of the comparative strengths of both kinds of energy, that in order to make this worthwhile, we needed to design an approach that was scalable and replicable, but also really had to do with cultural shifts in between the two kinds of energy provision. We agreed that sharing data across all partners was going to be critical and that the whole process would be highly transparent and available for a number of people to engage in along the way. And for project funding to happen, it was required that we actually develop integrated energy models. So finding ways that, in this case, UMEME and the decentralized partner companies would work together very closely, whether it was from a co-branding perspective or ultimately from an integration and technology perspective. And we've certainly learned a lot along the way. Yes, thank you. Just a bit about the timeline to bring you up to date. So you see here in 2018, we had these first kickoff meetings. Then a group of us traveled to Uganda to really present some creative ideas about how decentralized companies could support UMEME and the country of Uganda. And shortly after that, we identified some leading ideas, turn those into business models, and then move forward, not just with the concepts put together in a sort of call to action, which is available and we'll share with you on follow-up in 2019, but actually getting into a specific pilot in Uganda where we test these benefits of working together and providing a chance to really try out new business models where we can, again, leverage those comparative strengths. Just a few minutes about this. It is worth noting that there is high ambition in Uganda to bring energy to its entire population. And it really is this incredible opportunity to leverage the strengths of the entire power sector to focus on helping this country succeed in that ambition. So over these last 2 years, a number of organizations, some of which we'll hear from today, have been working in cooperation, including several local Ugandan companies, to really advance these benefits. And this whole endeavor has been designed entirely in partnership and with a focus on accelerating connections, driving demand stimulation, and really trying to find the ways of bringing the best of smart grid technologies to apply here. Next slide, please. So a couple of key milestones, and then we'll move on to hearing from our partners. Again, with such a focus on partnership, we started in very early days to create working groups to address the key topics we thought would need attention in order to really effectively move forward on a new integrated approach to energy. Those ranged from operations to marketing to social and economic studies. We together developed business models to create jointly profitable opportunities. And we also established an entire system for joint operating plans between UMEME and decentralized energy companies. And finally established a framework that includes MOUs, NDAs, all of those sorts of things that we needed in place. But it always was the foundation of being united in our focus to accelerate connections and really help Uganda achieve its national goals. Next slide, please. So now we're going to hear from Utilities 2.0 partners. To start, I think we'll head ourselves over to Ricardo Rodolfi, who is the CEO of Equatorial Power. And I believe, team, also we can probably stop sharing our slides so we could perhaps see faces a little bit more close up for this, this portion of the discussion. Thank you. Ricardo, over to you.
Thank you, Christina, and thanks everybody for making the time to connect. So very quickly, I want to get to the meat of it. So a little bit of intro. Equatorial Power is really a renewable energy platform with the sole objective and vision to accelerate energy access. It is no more than the result of a number of failures and learnings over the years of many of us in the space. And we come together, and truly the two biggest learnings were that in order to achieve energy access and accelerate energy access, we have to understand that energy access is but one piece of the greater puzzle, which is the national energy system. So we must never divorce the thought of energy access from energy system bankability. And I think that's a great way that I would like you guys to think about this, and because it's really a good segue into understanding the relationship with the national utility. So from our point of view, as Equatorial Power, the two pillars or tenets to how we wanted to deploy our model were partnerships and integration. We really started from the DNA of the company to focus on how can we partner with best-in-class companies such as UMEME, such as ENGIE, such as many others that you'll hear from today, in order to fix what we think was the gap. I mean, there's plenty of technology, there's plenty of capital, there's obviously plenty of market, a lot of people that need power. What we thought was missing was the right business model. And we really think that that goes around the term integration. We see integration in two layers. The first is at the site level. We've gone far beyond, frankly, we don't even care about electricity. The truth is we care about what electricity enables for people. That's at the crux. That's the bottom line for everything that we do. So when you think of a remote community, and when you go and visit a remote community, you soon realize that they need a whole lot of things. What we've done as Equatorial Power is we've done our best to go beyond electricity to really focus on what electricity can do. So our sites are an integrated approach to access to energy, where we build renewable energy assets, we deliver power to people, but we also purify water, we provide ice, and we are working on electric mobility solutions. So the site in itself, we've learned that way, we not only deliver more impact, but we deliver more returns as well. And so that is what educated our next layer of integration, which is, well, what else can be done with the national utility? I benefit from the luxury of perspective in this case, because I've learned a lot in the last 3 years on the board of UMEME. And I can tell you that before you get to know the utility intimately, you think, oh, it's a big bad utility, you know, it's easy for them, they're subsidized. In truth, it's the hardest job in the world. I challenge any of you out there to tell me who you know who's happy with their power bill anywhere in the world. Nobody's happy with their power bill, yet everybody's very upset the moment there's a power cut. So it's only through understanding the difference in the models and the difference in the incentive mechanisms that you learn where the gap lies. So we came to this Utility 2.0 consortium with this in mind, thinking, okay, the utility has a set of problems, and it's around the fact that when they extend the national grid, the demand uptake is very, very slow, which means all utilities, in fact, from the beginning of time, were designed to deliver power centrally and are really designed in their DNA to do a great job in cities or aggregated centers, whether it's cities or industry, but never really designed to serve rural customers. The opposite is true for platforms such as Equatorial Power. We were born to serve the rural customer. We are customer-facing energy businesses, just like a few others that you'll hear from today, just like many of our peers in the sector. Now, we thought the real value we can bring in a partnership with Umeme, which is otherwise maybe best in class on the whole continent as a utility, is we can focus on these customers and we can together in partnership with other companies, we can focus on growing the demand, on growing the bankable, the sustainable use of electricity at the site level. And that's really where we think there is a business model to be explored and developed. Right now, we see integration in one of two ways. We will either interconnect and continue to operate this grid on behalf in partnership with Umeme, or move on and always be at the frontier of the energy access. We don't know, when it comes from an investment point of view, it is yet uncertain whether there's an asset class into it, but we are certain that there is a collaboration to be had in terms of operation, in consumer-facing rural operations. That's really where we come at this knowing that there's a lot to be done there, and there are two entities partnering that are great at doing the opposite. So long-term partnership is really the underlying term here, and we think that what we hope to prove with this pilot project is that we off-grid operators in partnership can grow the value of rural customers, turning them from what are very low consuming, almost unbankable customers to viable customers from a utility perspective. We think we can do that, and we hope to show it with this pilot. And I mean, it's been acknowledged, but I want to acknowledge once again the role of the Rockefeller Foundation, which has put a lot of money behind this and is hopefully, wink, wink, committed to putting a lot more money to scale this. Because the truth is, when you're dealing with a utility, and as I said at the beginning, a national energy system, you do need a degree of scale to really prove anything. So I suppose the two messages I want to leave with are, number one, partnerships are essential because everybody's good at certain things. But number two, there is no need for new technology. We have everything that we need. All we need to now fine tune is the business model with which to replicate this in scale and bankably. And we think we'll be able to do that. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And just for context for everyone, and I'm sure we'll be supplying some additional background information, but it was Equatorial Power who actually led on the license exemption that was necessary for this pilot. And in fact, what will be deployed in Kiwumu by Equatorial Power, what is deployed and what we're celebrating today, is a 40 kilowatt peak mini grid that will power over 300 households and 60 local businesses. And soon we'll be hearing from the other companies who are focused on the productive use element of making sure that we grow that load, but also provide meaningful services to help people get beyond access and into the real benefits of an energy connection. So thanks again, Ricardo. And now moving on to my dear friend and colleague, Florence Nisbuga, and she will be talking to us as the COO of Umeme, telling us a little bit about their partner journey. Florence, over to you, and I believe you might have one slide for the team to present.
Thank you very much, Christina, for that introduction. And greetings to all participants who have joined this very important event. I'll start by just sharing. Please put up the slide. Yes, thank you very much. I'll start by just sharing our role as Umeme in the electricity sector. The Uganda's electricity sector was liberalized in 1999, supported by the World Bank, and unbundled, as you can see, into generation, transmission, and distribution to foster transparency and investment. And ERA regulates all the activities of the sector. Umeme Limited is Uganda's main electricity distribution company, cross-listed on the Uganda and Nairobi Stock Exchange, accounting for 95% of the footprint. As Umeme, we operate two licenses, just like you see in the slide. That is a supply and distribution license. As has already indicated, our electrification targets in line with NDP3 are really steep at 60% by 2025. However, again, the resources, the investments that are required are over $5 billion, as Christina indicated, somewhere between $5 and $7 billion. It's against this backdrop that when Power for All reached out to Meme to partner to carry out research aiming at looking at new models to accelerate energy and faster and cheaper, it was inevitable that we came on board. Now, regarding what we participated in as UMEME, we participated right from the beginning in terms of site identification, in terms of business models, and we started off with a survey design workshop that was hosted in Spain by Alpha. And we brought on board as UMEME the utilities perspective into the process of using a customer-centric approach and design thinking process to come up with research questions, which we're trying to respond to right now. We also led the stakeholder engagements, which are very critical in a project like this, which is the first of its kind, and the technical alignment in the areas of collaboration, including project design, building of low voltage network, metering, and access to the back-end systems. What lessons have we learned so far? As indicated by Ricardo, the deepening and fast tracking of penetration rates. We can see right now in the pilot site that as a result of the collaboration that we have had, we have already achieved 90% of the targeted customer connections over two months. Whereas the control sites where electrification started between 5 and 10 years ago, the penetration rates are only seated at about 55%. And how has this happened? Through the presence of community officers from Equatorial Power, through the presence of the local leaders who have been appointed as officers as well to support in the mobilization, and also the deployment of ready boards, which is one of the reasons why there is a slow uptake because of the cost of wiring. Regarding other lessons learned, there are project savings as far as synergies in procurement, in the technical system capabilities that would benefit the end user. And this has resulted from the partnering where each one of the companies has comparative advantage. For example, Equatorial Power indicated their strength in terms of the customer experience, our strength in terms of system, in terms of project design. Those have led to cost savings. There is also a need to bring together stakeholders on board at a very early stage to avoid any roadblocks in terms of project implementation. As far as technical alignment is concerned, in areas of metering, the distribution network and system with standards, the integrated planning has reduced the extra costs that would have been incurred at integration, and definitely we'll see that when we get to that stage, such that when the project term completes, it would allow for smooth transition. I have to emphasize the customer development through appliance financing. With the pilot project, we have seen the improvement in the viability of the customers as indicated by Equatorial Power, which is a very, very, very key component of this project. Deployment of generation sets, assets that can be deployed on various sites when the grid arrives, will optimize the capex costs that we've indicated right now are really, really high. The reduction in the off-grid soft project costs by exploiting the standards that already exist, for example, in the case of a utility like UMEME, through the partnerships, also go a long way in bringing down the costs to extend services, particularly in the rural area. In terms of the future, as UMEME, we are looking to replicate the project at scale in order to achieve tangible results and set new benchmarks for national utilities on the continent, depending on the results that the pilot project has to hold. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Florence. And I have to say, with being in the energy sector for over 25 years, it's been incredible to work with the team at Umeme. It's such an incredible and dedicated group of people. And it's rare to find a utility who's so interested in innovating. So really hats off to you as one of our core partners. It's been an amazing experience. And on that note, let's hear now from some of our partners that are more focused on making sure that we drive demand and also help people realize the full scope of benefits that come from energy access. We'll hear now from Aaron Leopold, the CEO of Intergrow, and a longtime friend and partner of the campaign. So Aaron, over to you to hear about not just Kiwumu, but also what we're doing in Nyenje as the control site. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. I may be mistaken, but I don't know if Dan is going first. Just let's check the slides to make sure that we have the right ones. Yeah, I think Dan Klink is starting. So Dan, over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it. Yes, my name is Dan Klink, the CEO and founder for East African Power. We are an energy development company that is very passionate about seeing 1,000 megawatts of affordable and reliable power delivered by the end of the decade. So in this pilot, I really have to jump out and say our appreciation for all of the valued partnerships that have been made through Umeme, and of course the vision and platform brought from Power for All, the generosity of the Rockefeller Foundation, the academic and private sector partners that have helped to materialize on this. It's been a real joy. So does making or generating power get us up in the morning? I think it's really not just about power, and just to reiterate what Ricardo said, it's what power can do. And there's a reason why when we discuss energy as this golden thread to the other SDG 7 targets, it's really because power empowers jobs. And so what brought us to this pilot was really what we saw, certainly from Uganda and Umeme's example, is that there's a conducive regulatory environment for doing business, and that solutions are really going to be driven by public-private partnerships. And certainly this kind of platform for innovation has been exciting to be a part of with other players. So to discuss that, energy is just not enough of generating. It's about integrating power into a community with a long-term and really a holistic vision is certainly key to sustainability. Our company, we partnered on this to propose a solution really to maximize efficient consumption of renewable energy in renewable communities while contributing to the socioeconomic needs. EAP understands that energy access in remote areas is just one step to improve social and the economic situations that are there. And certainly what is highlighted this is the need for improvement with agro-processing. It's not just about bringing the generation, in particular for mini-grids and off-grid areas. It's about bringing power and also bring demand for that power at the same time. And I think Ricardo, captured well. It's about the profitability. How is this going to be sustained? How is this going to be replicated? And certainly this is where the innovations in the business model have been exciting to be a partner in. So in this collaboration, so EAP did the first containerized hydropower plant in Africa. And it's one thing to bring in that containerized modular plug and play solution for generation, but really was about kind of bringing in that on the demand side. So this was an excellent opportunity to work with all of the partners to introduce the Empower Pods. So this is the technology to stimulate and boost demand in rural areas, and to be an anchor load for the local grid. In this case, consuming about 20% of the mini grid's power. So the plug and play solution on the Empower Pods, it will help the local farmers to reduce post-harvest losses through improved milling and drying services. So the capacity of this is to dry and mill 2 tons of maize per day in accordance with the minigrid power capacity. And so this is kind of a step forward in innovation on these modular, and of course there's more that can be done with bringing in not only drying and milling, but threshing, cold storage, water purification. And this is an excellent platform, an example to see innovation in the business model. So the real impact for us in this is to see the local operator, Pastor Fred, and to see some of the technicians like Gideon, Habumugisha, who've done just an excellent job at bringing this about and realizing that in these containerized concept that the local miller can eventually take over ownership of these through a lease to own model. Really it's about seeing this scale and test it out. So the next steps for us is certainly to continue in the spirit of further partnership with Umeme, with Equatorial, with Energrow, with Power for All, and other partners to see this replicated. So in the upcoming project near the Kasizi Hospital, we're looking forward to introducing an agri park, which will see again the containerized, the first containerized hydro solution, accompanied by the demand side of about 5 of these containers. And again, as Ricardo said, it's about replication and about learnings. And certainly this is an excellent platform that has provided this spirit, and we look forward to the continued partnership in realizing this. Thank you for this. And again, thank you for all of the partners and the local team that have materialized on this technology. Thank you.
Those are great comments, Dan. And I just think it's worth noting as well that in a country where the vast majority of jobs come from the agricultural sector, developing innovations that it can actually help increase productivity and create more income are well needed. And it's great to see this kind of partnership as well. So thank you for your comments. Aaron, now finally you get a chance to speak. Over to you to tell us about Energrow and the work we're doing in appliance financing together.
Thanks so much, Christina, and thanks to all the participants and all of the project partners. Go to the next slide, please. I'd like to first tell you a little bit about Energrow and why it is that we are a partner in this important project. So one of the major problems that has been discussed already, you can go back to the previous slide, please. I'll tell you when to jump to the next one. Thank you. One of the major problems in the energy sector is that energy is very, very expensive. As Ricardo was mentioning, everyone complains about their power bill, but also complains when the power goes out. And the reality is that across Africa, energy utilities do not make enough money to realistically cover their costs in most cases, with Umeme being a notable exception, being the only profitable national utility on the continent. Minigrid companies struggle with the same issue because they are being asked to go to the most difficult to reach, hardest, furthest locations from big city centers where it makes sense for the national utility to run their operations. So what is the solution? The solution to a demand and supply unequal problem is to balance out that supply and demand. And what Energrow does is help build demand for electricity services. We offer microfinance for a variety of different energy consuming products that help people earn an income. We don't sell anything that doesn't help people either save money or make money. And in this photograph, one of our customers you see using a sewing machine to radically increase the quality and the speed of her production so she can sell more and better quality items. We also sell things for restaurants, such as cooking equipment and refrigeration equipment, for kiosks, again, refrigeration equipment. What we also work on is metalworking, carpentry equipment, and we're getting into household goods that can help save people money, such as electric pressure cookers, which save both time and money for people cooking rice and beans across the continent in particular. And we do this on a microfinance basis. All of our customers could not have afforded these types of appliances. And indeed, these types of appliances are not to be found in rural areas at all. People would have to go hundreds of kilometers in some cases to actually find a quality sewing machine. And when they get to that town center, how do they know which one is a good quality product? How do they know that they can actually use or trust the warranty on that product? Energrow takes care of that for them by providing high quality products, and we take care of the warranty for the customers in case of a problem. Please, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So how does this work? We partner with energy companies such as Equatorial Power and Umeme, and in future we're going to be partnering with a few other energy or mini-grid companies in Uganda that are already in the works, and we're planning to be partnering across the continent in coming years. And we partner with the energy companies to help the energy companies learn about how their customers' demand changes with the increase in income and with the increase in availability of appliances. And why can't energy companies do this themselves? Well, oftentimes a community can actually absorb almost as much money in appliances as all of the connections in the community cost. So we think over 5 years' time that we'll be able to sell appliances equal to the amount of the energy system. And that is a huge additional amount of fundraising that the energy company has to do that they don't have time or experience to do, because microfinance is a completely different business to building energy systems. So they really are quite happy generally to have a partner to do this with them. So we've done over 6,000 baseline studies to help understand what type of microfinance to offer, what type of appliances to offer, and how to work with our customers. And from that, we have identified a credit scoring mechanism that helps us identify good customers from risky customers. We then deliver the assets to people and collect monthly payments, and everyone is winning. We have the customers earning more money, we have Energrow earning a return, and we have the energy companies earning more money as well. And we repeat the cycle again and again and again. As the companies grow into new markets, and as the village increases income and is able to afford more appliances. So next slide, please. So just as a reminder, Energrow is a homegrown Ugandan company with a Ugandan co-founder, and we're based in Kampala only right now, but we're looking to grow. And we think that these statistics that show the initial findings of a pilot are really, really compelling and give the evidence that, you know, if you're not doing microfinance as part of your national energy utilities work or your mini-grid companies work, you're really losing out. So the number of customers that could have afforded the appliances that we have supplied our customers without us is zero. None of them could have afforded these appliances based on their current income levels. On average, our customers have increased their energy consumption by 32%, which helps dramatically the energy companies in our pilots. And our customers have increased their income by almost 70% as an average. This is incredible. This has the potential to start the ending of this poverty trap. If we can really supply people with high quality goods that help them earn an income, this is going to provide immense new opportunities for families, for businesses, and for energy expansion, because this changes the economics of rural electrification. So the repayment rates are fantastic at around 90%. This has fluctuated, of course, because coronavirus has locked things down at different times and made it difficult for people to pay because they're out of work in some cases. But the repayment rates have still been fantastic. Why? Because the appliances are helping people to earn an income. They have an enormous incentive to repay these loans. And interestingly, half of our customers have already indicated that they would like a second loan. Brian, the one with a big smile in that photograph right there, he has already completed 2 loans with Energrow and wants to use a third one to buy an ice cream machine because he has this little kiosk there and he's selling juice. He's serving chilled drinks and now wants to sell ice cream. So all this has the potential, if we have repeat customers, to continually increase their incomes again and increase the energy consumption even more. And I just wanted to end on the slide because it shows that, again, as Ricardo said, this is not about electrons, this is about people. And what we really have to remember at the end of the day is that if our customers are winning, we are succeeding because our mission is to serve our customers. And with this model, we're pretty convinced that energy access, universal energy access, can indeed be a reality by 2030 if we get this type of model set up in different markets across the continent. With that, thank you very much and look forward to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Erin. And I just really want to compliment Intergrow in this effort. You know, in our early days when we were first coming together as decentralized energy companies, meeting with Umeme and essentially brainstorming together what would be meaningful ways to help with the utilities' pain points and help address the lack of energy connections, appliance financing was universally a cause of excitement. And now I think we can see very clearly why. I think it's also important to note that in the history of electricity systems, having appliances to drive demand and support the overall load of the grid it's just been a historic point. In fact, in the United States, when we were first setting up electrification agencies, there were people who were going door to door to help encourage people to buy appliances, which were then supported and subsidized by the utility and supported through on-bill financing. So there's certainly a lot of interesting results here, especially I think the fact that we're doing this at an on-grid site as well as a decentralized site. So another great reason for people to stay tuned and learn as we learn about the impacts as we go. So team, if we could come to the next slides. We're now moving into a section of our presentation that's focused on hearing from endorsements. And in particular, we'd like to get started with some comments initially from the government of Uganda, represented here by Engineer Cecilia Menya, who is at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and has been a wonderful support system and real enthusiast for this pilot. So Engineer Cecilia, over to you. Ideally, you'll be able to turn on your camera and we can shut the slides so we can see you directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good afternoon. Like I've been introduced, I'm Engineer Cecilia Menya, the Acting Director, Energy Resources Development at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. And on behalf of the Permanent Secretary, it is my great pleasure that I welcome you all to today's official commissioning of the Utilities 2 Twake pilot project. In a special way, I would like to welcome our development partners tuned in into this event across the globe. The ministry is delighted to witness this commissioning of the first ever interconnected mini-grid in Uganda. And indeed, it is a very important milestone in the promotion of access to sustainable energy through renewable energy in our country. On behalf of the entire energy sector, therefore, I wish to commend the initiative undertaken by Power for All with Umeme and the rest of the energy companies that partnered to implement this integrated 40-watt peak solar mini grid. Under the Vision 2040, the government of Uganda plans to transform the country from predominantly low income to competitive upper middle income, reaching a per capita GDP of USD 9,500 by 2040. We can see that the vision acknowledges energy as one of the key fundamentals required to harness the country's opportunities and drive the industrial and service sectors. Strong growth in the national economy is bound to increase the demand for energy and therefore open the sector for further development. However, achieving the balance between energy, economy, and the environment leads to sustainable development. Now, increasing access and utilization of electricity is one of the 4 major objectives of the Sustainable Energy Development Program that the sector is implementing for the 5 years of the National Development Plan 3. And also in addition, the ministry continues to put in place policies and legislation to support on-grid and off-grid access, targeting to achieve 100% access by 2030. Such policies include the Electricity Act 1999, which is under review, the National Electrification Strategy that we are developing. We are in advanced stages. I think by next month, we shall be concluding. And also the Energy Policy 2002 that is under final stages of review. Access to sustainable energy contributes to a better quality of life. And to those that have modern energy, it unlocks access to improve health care and education. It improves economic opportunities and catalyzes growth of human development indicators. While to those that do not have modern energy services, it is a major constraint to their social and economic development. Therefore, energy, I can't emphasize more, is a key enabler to attain sustainable development and to usher the country into middle income status. Right now, the current level of on-grid electrification, which is estimated at about 24%, is still low. And this is an indication that there is still more that needs to be done to increase the access connectivity rates. And to fast track electricity connectivity and stimulate demand, the government of Uganda, working with private sector partners, ought to explore innovative approaches that yield accelerated energy access at lower costs. This project is just timely. Government is keen on promoting the optimal development of grid solar PV through integrated resource planning and widespread use of solar thermal technologies in compliance with regulations and standards. This tracker initiative that is being commissioned today tests the premise that collaboration across energy market actors can achieve faster, cheaper, and more universal connections than a grid-only approach. It further underpins the role of public-private sector partnerships in expediting Government of Uganda's energy sector. The ministry congratulates Power for All, Umeme Uganda Limited, Rockefeller Foundation, and all other partners for this first of its kind integrated energy project in Uganda. And it has the potential to not only fast track rural electrification, but also stimulate energy demand for productive uses. The ministry therefore fully supports the implementation of this new distribution model, such as this one, as a solution to some of the challenges faced in delivering affordable and reliable energy for all. And we hope that the design is sustainable and it can be replicated to foster the much needed access to electricity for many of our rural areas. Therefore, on behalf of my permanent secretary, I thank all stakeholders that have supported the Twake project and those that have spared their precious time to participate in this commissioning today. I assure all of our stakeholders that government is committed to providing affordable and reliable power supply. And with these few remarks, I hereby pledge our support as the ministry to the successful execution of this project. I thank you very much for your attention, and please stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you with us. And thank you so much for extending your support, as well as the support of the permanent secretary. This is absolutely an important part of the partnership. So onward now, let me move on to introducing the executive director of the Power and Climate team from the Rockefeller Foundation, Mr. Joseph Nanga. Sorry, Joseph Ngonga. It's early here where I am, forgive me. I'd love to turn things over to you, if you wouldn't mind turning your camera on so we can hear some remarks about how the Utilities 2.0 TWACE pilot fits into the overall vision of the Rockefeller Foundation. Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you very much, Christina, and you pronounced my name perfectly, despite the early morning. My camera is on. I hope you can see me on your end. Ricardo does thumbs up, so I assume that's a yes, thank you. I'd like to start by thanking you, Christina and Sumaya and the colleagues at Power for All for this tremendous work. I am sure it's taken an enormous amount of effort shepherding a diverse group of people and stakeholders to get us to this launch. And particularly to have done it during COVID is quite impressive. And so we at the Foundation express our deepest gratitude. I would also like to acknowledge this diverse group of stakeholders. Putting together something like this has taken goodwill, interest, compromise, and a shared vision to get to the launch. And I have to say that with such a group of diverse stakeholders coming together has allowed us to learn a lot from what can be done through the combination of utilities and DREs to reach energy access. And to that end, I would like to start by acknowledging the Government of Uganda, and specifically Ms. Cecilia from the Principal Energy Officer, Ministry of Energy, and the Rural Electrification Agency, Benon Bena. The government's engagement has given us as a foundation confidence that this is not just an interesting pilot, but a pilot that has the support of the Government of Uganda, and therefore the possibility of turning what would be the successful outputs from it into something bigger and more achievable. Along the same lines, I would like to thank and acknowledge the developers, private sector involved, including Equatorial Power, including Enagro, and I am forgetting Dan's shop, East Africa Power, I believe, for really working on this pilot. While you could be out developing your own expansive businesses, you took the time to also work on this pilot. And that really demonstrates your interest and ability in looking at things from a different lens. And we at the Foundation acknowledge the effort it's taken and the resources, and we thank you for that. Similarly, this would not be successful without the support of UMEME. And so we at the Foundation would like to say a particular thank you to Celestino Babungi, MD of UMEME, and Florence Nsumbuga of UMEME as well. We believe very strongly that a utility that is open and interested in working with the mini-grid space is positioning itself to reach the more difficult to reach clients in a financially and technically sustainable way. And so we're very happy that UMEME continues to be a partner with us on this, and we're really keen to continue our collaboration. Talking of collaboration, why is this of interest to us at the Foundation, and why is it so relevant? And to demonstrate its relevance, I have to indicate that I have two colleagues dialing in from New York, Ashwin Dayal, who's Vice President of Power and Climate, and Claire, who heads up our strategy on the continent and on the emerging SPX entity. And you might ask, what is this SPX entity, and what does it, why is it so relevant? So we at the Foundation, and in partnership with IKEA, have put aside $1 billion towards ending energy poverty. And what's relevant to this particular conversation about that new entity is that we see our role in three key steps or pieces or menu items, as you will. The first one is working very closely with countries and governments to develop the right policy and regulatory framework, and not just in producing new studies, but also in funding pilots such as this one that very concretely demonstrates the benefits and the additionality of the interventions we are proposing. The second leg of our work involves making investments. So we recognize that if such a pilot is successful and we think it needs to scale up, there is still a gap for the equatorial powers, the East Africa powers, the ENAGROs of the world to raise adequate cash or capital that is right suited from a risk perspective, from a tenor perspective, from a costing perspective, to help what is a nascent sector scale up. And so we work and intend to work very closely with private sector to make investments. And alongside those investments, we also intend to support tech and innovation. For example, we're looking at how we can help companies procure equipment in bulk, which provides economies of scale and drives higher technology, higher quality technology, efficient value chains, and hopefully drives down the end user tariff, which ultimately is the end game for all of us, is ensuring that there is energy access, but access that's also extremely affordable. And the third part of what we intend to do in this new entity is data and knowledge advocacy. So learning from this pilot, learning from the opportunity for scale up is not only useful for Uganda in helping drive connectivity and electrification in Uganda, but I think it also provides us with a wonderful set of data and information to replicate this across other markets on the continent. And they're working with other partners such as MIT and so on. We're doing a lot of technical analysis and looking at how this would, in a very concrete and tangible way, impact the technical and financial well-being of three parties: the utilities, the developer, minigrid developers, and ultimately the end user tariff. I will conclude by saying that this is just a launch. There's a lot of learnings that we anticipate in the next few months. We're looking forward to the same spirited collaboration we have seen. And we hope that at the end of this, or rather a year into this learning, we're able to say that our hypothesis was correct. The numbers are compelling. Let us do this in a big way. And so we are very excited at the foundation and delighted to be part of this. Thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And again, I just really want to commend the Rockefeller Foundation for the incredible leadership shown and announced last week to really put so much meaningful muscle behind this theory of change and a vision where everybody has the opportunity to benefit in the way that energy access can truly bring. And I think it's also important just to note before we move on to comments from Celestino that even with the $1 billion commitment, it's still important to do things from a least cost perspective. And that's one of the interesting things about this pilot and how we will be communicating in the future is with initial modeling, we've designed 3 business models that we're going to be testing out as part of this pilot that could potentially halve the cost and accelerate that pace. And again, we'll be reporting out on that as we learn and engaging to bring the whole sector with us. So thank you so much for those comments. And now for our final endorsement, if we could, from the MD of Umeme and also somebody I'm pleased to call a friend, Celestino Babungi. It'd be great to hear from you about what you see this pilot meaning for the future of the utility. On to you.
Okay, thank you, Christina, and thank you all participants and partners in this Twake project. You'll all agree with me that the world continues to innovate and implement solutions to address challenges facing humanity. The current pandemic really has demonstrated this. I recall last year in March when the president closed all the schools and he said, oh, all school-going children, please adopt homeschooling through radio, television, and digital channels, among others. It immediately struck me that the divide between the different economic classes is going to widen. Those without access to energy to power those equipment, and those in well-off areas with energy, I mean, the advantages will be to those that have access to modern energy. Again, when you look at the numbers for Uganda, which my colleagues have indicated, you will see that with 51% of households in Uganda having access to clean energy for lighting, using electricity, you'll find that a quarter of that is on the main grid. The balance is off-grid solutions that are ongoing. But again, when you project as Uganda, we project by 2030, when we are projecting to have a universal access, you will have 10.4 million households. How do we scale and connect these to clean energy to achieve the SDG 7? I mean, studies have been going on and found that the least costs of around 4.7 billion is required, US dollars is required, which will be a combination of grid, off-grid, and mini-grid solutions. And with TWAKE, or Utility 2.0, it presents us an opportunity to study from the pilot, learn, and solutions that will come and data that come from that, we can use that to scale access to clean energy, especially for Uganda, which is lagging if you compare even to our neighbors in Rwanda, in Tanzania. Kenya is at already 73%. So we need to do a lot as a country to scale, and any solution that comes that way at least cost is welcome. And also studies again confirm this. We've also seen it. Whenever you electrify an area, the economic conditions, the social well-being of those communities build up. And again, the energy solution now scales that, meaning that people to understand that I can get an equipment that uses energy and make economic life from it, other than waiting and just lighting. We are really proud of this TWAKE project, and we believe it's the way to go to solve Uganda's energy challenge. And as at UMEME, really, we strongly believe that a combination of grid, off-grid, and kind of rooftop solutions is the way to go. Naturally, if you check Uganda, are not people who live in concentrated communities like other countries. We live miles apart, distances apart, and taking the grid is the most expensive route. And we believe with this ready to integrate solution, it means when the grid arrives, we just get the equipment and move to another area that is disadvantaged. I take this opportunity to congratulate the project team for delivering the project to where it is now. Our partners, Power for All, funders, Rockefeller Foundation, Equatorial Power, East African Power, Enagro, the project community, which was acceptive to this project, and our UMEME team. Really, I'm proud that we have brought this from idea now to reality for that community. Our regulator, REA, and Ministry of Energy continue to be supportive of innovations, and we look forward to the successful pilot results to feed into future projects to implement at scale. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Celestino. What a pleasure to hear your remarks. And, just to, I think, underscore some of Celestino's remarks and to bring us back to how the pilot has actually come to this point. It has been through very deep engagement, really spearheaded by the MD himself. I know one of the issues that we've heard in other countries that are attempting some efforts like this is a lack of support throughout the entire utility. But what's been great about the way that Florence and Celestino have set up this collaboration is that together we have been in the trenches, always identifying opportunities to accelerate connections, but also to save on costs. And the modeling that we will also be sharing in follow-up conversations. We also have a recording of a webinar from last year about this, but we believe that we can reduce costs by reducing upfront capital and leveraging the utility's ability to access much less expensive sources of capital, which is just one of the incredible pain points of the decentralized community. And on that, this idea of also making sure that we're really trying to stimulate demand and ensure not only that we're encouraging more benefits by kilowatts consumed, but actually creating an excellent platform for growing businesses, creating jobs, and having an overall better quality of life. So again, Celestino, hats off to you and how you were always so open to innovate and test out new opportunities. And we look very much forward to continuing our learning together over the course of the next year and setting up for that target connection in June of 2022. So with that, we can now move on to the Q&A section of our discussion. Sumaya, I need to lean on you to help facilitate the Q&A. So if you could, please let us know how to proceed.
Thank you so much, Christina. And once again, welcome everyone. So we've had quite a few questions being posted in the group. And I am going to start maybe just, with the one question that everyone, keeps on asking is what type of a mini grid has been installed? So I think let me, tackle that first question just by saying that right now we have a 40 kilowatt peak mini grid located at Kiwumu, and it's a site just outside of the Mukono district. It is powering right now over 300, customers, and connections are going to be ongoing. So that is one question that has been posted. Christina, there's one specific question that I would like to address to yourself. And this question, just give me a moment. So this is the question from Sarah Bed, and she's asking, if energy is necessary for jobs and productive use, then how does this integrated partnership speak to the alignment of, the SDGs and, the agenda of 2030? How do you and the partners think about, the UN's mandate to leave no one behind? I thought that question, it's a very apt question, and I know that you'd be very capable of trying to speak about, how can this partnership, address SDG 7's goals?
Sure, I'll take a first stab at it, and I see that Aaron's turned on his camera, so I'm guessing he's going to want to share his thoughts as well. But look, at the end of the day, energy is central to not just job creation, but creation of opportunity. And the whole concept of leaving no one behind is exactly why Power for All has always focused on really trying to bring energy where it's needed most. And in these rural areas, these peri-urban and rural areas that are often so challenging for the utilities to extend to in a cost-effective and timely manner, is exactly where this kind of partnership can step in. And I think for some more comments on the job side, both Aaron and Dan might feel open to comment on that, but clearly productive use is a key component of addressing the outcomes of SDG 7. So Aaron, I see that you probably want to contribute here.
Sure. I mean, job creation is a central component of our work here. And for Energrow, at least, our microfinance comes along with training. We do small business training, we do accountancy and bookkeeping training, and increasingly we're looking to do training in groups as well. So we're working together with SACCOs, with church groups, with women's groups to help them understand how they can start a business if they don't have one already, and how they can better manage their own business through those types of trainings that I mentioned. And this will allow them to start to grow enough that they can bring on new employees as well. So I just wanted to mention that this is really embedded in our business model. And if we can't create jobs, then the partnership won't really be a success, because the economics of these communities must fundamentally change in order to make them economically viable for the energy companies. So we really have to make that work.
Yeah, well said, Aaron. And just to add to that, so Power for All did a study in 2019, which we call the job census. And we found a number of important findings, but one of the most powerful is that the productive use component of energy access connections, which means the kind of work that Energrow does, has a 5x effect. So instead of creating one job, we create several jobs. And at the end of the day, there is meant to be this virtual cycle. And we've already seen it with this sector already employing more people than traditional utilities. And beyond that, having more opportunity in many cases to really find jobs in these rural areas themselves. So as opposed to people having to relocate, and I'm sure our partners on this can speak to this, having people at the site who can represent a company or identify issues, et cetera, is certainly a target. But this is all about jobs and economic development at the end of the day. So thanks for that, Sue. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment, but otherwise we can continue to the next question.
Yes, I think I would like to just, tackle a few more questions. So Ricardo, there's quite a few questions that I think you are most aptly to respond to. And the first one is, why has this approach, it seems as a very rational approach, why has it not, been done before? And why isn't it, being seen elsewhere? That's the first question. And then the second one speaks more towards what was the license exemptions process, and what type of license has been, acquired for this project? And did we need to amend or engage with the regulator to get any special licenses?
Thank you, Sumaya. Starting from the latter, just because it's easier, there was no amendment required. This was a simple license exemption under 2 megawatt regime. The only complexity here came out of the nature of the project and that it would be interconnected. So legally, to not get people bored with the details, it is a 1-year license which will either be renewed and extended and or folded under the UMEMA license if and when the project will be interconnected. So that's on the license. The more interesting question as to why is somewhat philosophical, right? I mean, why this project makes perfect sense. And I think the whole 350 or so people that tuned in would have thought the same. Why has this not been done elsewhere? And I think there's 2 elements here. The first goes to the fact that I don't think that, again, the energy system is centralized, and I don't think that many governments have ever felt the need that they needed help in delivering what was perceived as a public good. Help with private companies, because obviously the World Bank's involved, many donors are involved, but there's always been a perception, and to a large degree, there still is what I would call a very damaging perception that help is not needed, collaboration is not needed to deliver energy access if you're the government, if you're the publicly owned utility. So I think that's the main reason why such a project has not been tried before. And the second point is partnership, because I believe in Nigeria, there's been a pilot project ongoing, which we hope will be successful. But the key difference is that it is difficult to work with a public utility. And I can't emphasize enough, I think everybody's gratitude towards UMEME in doing this. Now, to be fair to other utilities, UMEME is private. So there is definitely more common DNA. But I think that it's a mixture of the political misperception, I would say, that this can be done if you're centrally and alone. And on the other hand, the collaborative spirit, which is, I don't think is a question of willingness. I just think it's a question of DNA and habit. And so I think a big value of this project is it will be Celestino's and Florence's role, as well as ours, outside the bounds of Uganda, with KPLC in Kenya, with everybody else in literally every other African country and beyond Africa. I truly believe that. So I hope that touches that point, Sumaya.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. Erin, here's a question that I think you can tackle, and the question is, can the loans under productive use of energy be extended to other parts of the grid and beyond the project?
Yes, we are here to serve all Ugandans everywhere. We're limited only by our small size and the fact that we're running a very specific pilot right now to prove a couple of points. But we're also looking to really focus on agro-processing, on e-mobility in the future. This will allow our customers in further rural areas to improve their ability to get good prices for more refined agricultural products and also get them to market more affordably as well. So we're hoping to expand quite dramatically over the next couple of years. And we're already moving from our initial 2 sites that we've spoken about today to an additional 3 to 6 sites in the coming months. And we want to be in probably around 12 sites by the end of the year in Uganda. And this is going to help prove out how we can quickly expand elsewhere. Because the magic of appliance financing is we don't have to invent everything. All the products that we're selling are available already in countries across the continent. They're just unaffordable to people. So even going to a new market will not take a reinvention of our business model. It's just going to do the same thing in similar communities in other places. So we do have quite an aggressive growth plan.
Thank you so much. So this is the final question before I'm going to turn it back over to you, Christina. But Ricardo, again, here's 2 interesting questions that I think you can also support in answering, and we can definitely ask the UMEME colleagues to weigh in as well. The first question is, what are the type of business modes that the project is targeting when interconnection will be made? And when and what was the relationship between, Umeme and Equatorial Power during, the construction and implementation phase of, the DRE site? So there's two sides of that questions, and I think it would be good for, Umeme to also just weigh in on, what was their role, what have they learned? Maybe Florence, you could just, tackle on a few of those points.
Sure, very quickly, and then Florence, feel free to jump in at any moment. I think I'll start from the end again. The relationship was extremely cordial and collaborative from the start. I think the team was very excited. Obviously, it's from a small company perspective, dealing with the big player is always difficult. And yeah, I think it was a great learning experience for us, and we're grateful. My team's really grateful to the work and the patience put in by the Umeme team. So, and I think on their side, it's fair to say that they also had a perspective on a different business model that they hadn't considered to date. So, but I'll let Florence weigh in on that. Just moving on to your next part, the business models, right? I mean, there's two business models, and one of which is itself split in two. And I'll try and summarize this. And Florence, again, please do weigh in on this. So the ways we're looking at this is that on the one hand, there's an asset, right? There are potential investors behind an asset, which is the minigrid. Questions arising like, who will own the asset? When the grid interconnects, will there be a compensation and the asset is transferred? We don't have answers to all these questions, but we think that we hope to show that there is a space for investment in these, let's call them front runner grid assets, okay? And then either through a compensation mechanism or through a changing of the regulatory nature, so the license. For example, the minigrid has a license to generate, distribute, and sell power. Right? Tomorrow, perhaps this changes and the minigrid gets integrated into the national grid. Power is therefore sold to the single buyer, which in Uganda is UETCL, and then bought in bulk by the distributor. So Umeme, should Equatorial continue to operate Equatorial, and then sold, right? So just to recap, because this is confusing. On the one hand, there's a clean net difference between the ownership of the asset, who keeps the ownership at par of value, meaning that if the ownership transfers from Equatorial Power to Umeme, then there's a payment of a delta, okay? Number one. Number two is that asset ownership remains with Equatorial Power, but then Equatorial Power would buy power in bulk, would sell power to the grid, buy power back and sell again. And that's just simply because of how the framework is structured in Uganda. And then there's a third model, which we're very bullish about, which is the PPP, if Umeme were to be public, or rather the long-term partnership for operations. We think that there is a role to play as a mini-grid or a rural operator to continue to be the rural operator, even under the so-called Umeme customers, or why not KPLC, why not Tanesco? So a little bit confusing, but these are the three ways we are looking at it. And I'll let perhaps Florence take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Christina. Thank you, Ricardo. You have ably covered the business models. I'll just touch on the few areas that we have supported Equatorial Power on. First of all, we did build the LV distribution network that was built by Umeme. We also provided the back-end systems, including the vending system. That back-end system, all the customers that have been connected are now vending through the Umeme platform. In addition to that, we provided the meter, and we have standards for the meter, standards for the construction. So we have provided the meter, which meter is what the customers in Kiwumu are using. We also supported with the project design, the scoping process. We worked very closely with Equatorial Power. We have a joint implementation agreement with the partners, and these are the areas that we have supported so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Florence. I think one more question, and then we can turn over to Christina to summarize the next steps. Dan, I know that, the Empower Pods is still very much, a new concept. But I think, would you perhaps just give, some insights with regards to what are you guys as East African Power hoping to achieve, with the Empower Pods, and also what is the opportunities, for future partnerships that you guys are foreseeing with this technology?
Thanks, Maya. Yeah, just maybe to reiterate that the objective of this pilot was to see successful and profitable local entrepreneurs, and to see that it can be replicated to our next project in near Kasizi Hospital. So I think through the value of these partnerships, we'll see us expand not only from drying and milling, but to threshing, cold storage, water purification, and attach this to a different containerized generation source through hydropower. So with that first kind of expanded pilot, with again fostering a lot of the existing partnerships, we could see this expand 10 times across Western Uganda. And we think that this is the right place and market to do this. And of course, sky is the limit when it comes to what can be replicated across Africa. So really it's about empowering jobs with this and holistic development. So we see great potential in it. And of course, it's not just for us and our development, but it's certainly a technology that can be beneficial to many mini-grid operators who are struggling to see themselves being profitable and needing to see ag processing taking place. So I think it's a solution for many, and across the sector we take those lessons learned, and not only for the off-grid, but of course when we get to the ends of the national grids, we're seeing a need for demand stimulation. So of course it has both on and off-grid contexts. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So Christina, over to you, because one of the questions was, so what are the next steps? Where to from here? And maybe you could just cover on that, and then we can, move on to the closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Well, that's actually just perfect, since we have 2 minutes left. So if the team could bring up the slide deck, and if we could just flash again to the last 2 slides, one being of, again, all the partners who have come together to share this vision and make this possible. Just by name, I really, again, want to thank Umeme, the Rockefeller Foundation, and of course, the support of the government, including both the ministry as well as ERA and the Rural Electrification Agency. All of our partners here today, Equatorial Power, Intergrow, East African Power, Makerere University, Zola. There'll be more news coming out about some work we'll be doing in a weak grid environment, and NextGrid as well. In addition, we've got actually over 40 partners who've been part of these working groups to help bring this vision to life and to work together from an in-kind perspective, just generously donating their thinking and experience to this initiative. But some particular ones we'd like to call out, of course, is UMass at Amherst, in particular. Jay Tunasia has been an incredible support for this entire process. Duke University, Cross Boundary, class, particularly on appliance financing, which we're working together to co-support the work of Intergrow. And of course, the fantastic analysis and support from Rocky Mountain Institute. And then finally, Phoenix, which is now an NG company, UOMA, Nithyo, Open Capital Advisors, and AMDA. None of this would have happened without you and with all of your incredible thinking and generosity of spirit, in addition to our shared vision. So on the last slide, just a few bullets about next steps, and then we'll wrap up. So moving forward after this commissioning today, we are continuing to work on customer connections and starting the financing rollout for appliances in Kiwumu. Also, we are going to be doing a quarterly reporting out on findings, and that's going to include everything from how appliance financing is going to customer adoption of the energy systems, etc., and as well as really a strong tracking on the social and economic indicators. We are planning in coordination with the government to focus on a sectorial task force that will really try to design an integration work plan. The target for a year from now in June 2022 is to focus on interconnection, and there's a number of pieces that need to be in place in order to make that happen. But the best way to stay abreast of the work that we're doing together is really to sign up for Power for All's newsletter, which you can find on our website at powerforall.org. And in addition to that, further on this week, we're going to be continually sharing content that we're creating reporting that's been done on this, as well as hopefully a podcast. And of course, our newsletter will come out on Thursday with more detail and content on this. And of course, we'll be sending a follow-up communication to all the attendees today. So with that, thank you so much. It's been just a pleasure and an honor to work with this incredible group of people. And thank you so much for attending from all over the world today. It's been a really energizing 90 minutes, and we look forward to our next time that we meet and provide further updates on this integrated energy pilot, Twake, in Uganda. Thank you and goodbye.